Alright, hello and welcome to the final tutorial. We'll be adding the final kind of gradient maps and show you how to use the vignetting tool, as well as some additional lighting to it. So, in most renders I like to make the lighting a bit more dramatic and exaggerated. So we're just going to select our tree layer again, and then make a new layer. We'll just use the smooth brush tool. You just want to get the kind of color tone the lighting is. So in this case, the lighting's a lot more yellowy and washed out. Pretty much just white. So we'll kind of get this color here. And then where the sun is shining onto the trees, we just want to add a little bit of light to it. As I said, not much at all. You don't want to over exaggerate it, but just kind of in the main parts. Kind of the opposite of what we did with the shadows before. You don't want to be careful not to do too much with this. Just very subtly kind of bring out the lighting in it. Just on areas like this. You really don't need much of it. You can hardly notice it in this render. It just adds a little bit more depth to it. And now we'll be adding some vignetting, which always makes it look a lot more realistic. So on the very top layer, you want to make a new layer. Then go to the gradient tool here. And just set it to, just want it to be from black to transparent. Make sure your transparent layer is also set to black. You can't really see it in the reference image, but there's two ways to do vignetting. You can do it just from the sides, so kind of like that, or just from the top, which I like to do mostly. Kind of gives it a different kind of feel, or from all directions, which we'll do in this image. But again, you just want to be very subtle with it and take your time with it. And to make sure it's not too dark around the edges, so it's not plainly obvious. Otherwise it doesn't look too good. So usually I like to add a little bit more where on the opposite side of the light source. So say the light's coming from the top right here, I want to add more to the bottom left side of it. You can press Ctrl T to change the size of it and kind of stretch it out a bit. But there, looks good. And move it to the left a little bit more. And turn the opacity down slightly. There you go, so it's very subtle, but it's still making a big difference on the image. There you go, so I'm quite happy with that. Now you can also add, if you're doing multiple renders of the same building, or say it's for like a project that you want to keep a consistent theme throughout it, you can add what's called a gradient map. I'm not sure if we'll be using it for this, but you kind of, if you want like a kind of color palette that you want to keep throughout the project, but make it more subtly throughout it. I'll show you what I mean. So this one is a lot more white pastel colors, kind of orangey, and there's some hints of very light green. So you kind of choose a kind of color palette you want. Try this one here. Go OK. And you can either try changing the blend modes. See what looks good. We don't usually do it at full opacity. It's more just a subtle thing to add to it. I quite like this soft light. Yeah, I think we'll go with the soft light for this one. And you can just turn the opacity down slightly. As you can see, it kind of adds a consistent color to it. Say if you have like lots of renders of these, you can have all of them with this gradient map on it. It'll make it a bit more consistent throughout. Just add that there. You can see it's very subtle, but it helps keep a consistent theme to it. And there we go. So for exporting, you can either save it as a PDF, or I usually just export it as a PNG. Those are usually the best settings. And then you export it. And there's our render. So thank you for watching this tutorial series. This is pretty much just the basics of rendering. In the more advanced tutorials, we get into adding a lot more detail into the image itself and the model itself. There's a lot more you can do with the lighting effects and whatnot, and how to set up your scene with V-Ray and all that. But yeah, this is it for the basic tutorial. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next series.